Formula One pit crew can change all four tires on a 768 kilograms, that's for 2026, car and send it back into a 200 mile per hour race in under 2 seconds. The world record is 1.80 seconds. McLaren 2023. It's so fast that the crew was already high-fiving before the car had fully left the box. Now, here's the thing I can't stop thinking about. Almost none of what creates that 2 seconds actually happens in those 2 seconds. What I mean by that. And once you see that, really see it, you start noticing it everywhere, including, I'd argue, in your own business. So that's what I want to talk about today. Not Formula One, really. I want to talk about what a pit stop teaches us about delivering a great customer experience. Because it turns out it teaches us three things. And all three things are, I see organizations getting it wrong constantly. I'm Hitesh Bagai, and this is Human Centered Experience, also the author of CX. Let me set this up quickly. When Formula One started back in 1950, a pit stop took over a minute. Mechanics refueled by hand, they knocked the wheels off with hammers. The driver basically sat there and waited it out. Today, under 2 seconds. And you might think, okay, that's just engineering, that's just sport. But stay with me, because a pit stop is the cleanest example of systems thinking I've ever found. You could study an entire racing season to understand coordination, sure, but a season's too big. You can't hold it in your head, similar to an end-to-end organizational process. A pit stop is a whole system compressed into a window. You can actually watch every handoff, every dependency, every way it can go wrong, all of it visible in 2 seconds. Let's open it up. 3 lessons. Now, lesson one. The experience is delivered by the operations nobody sees. When that car commits to the pit lane, about 23 people explode into motion. And every single one of them does exactly one job. 4 people on the tire guns. Those guns spin past 10,000 RPM, by the way. 4 people pulling old tires off, 4 putting new ones on, 2 on the front jack. And here's a detail I love. One of those 2 is a spare, a backup, just in case. Redundancy isn't an accident, it's designed in. But here's what matters. That 2-second performance, it's the tip of an enormous iceberg you never see. Before the 2019 season, the 10 F1 teams practiced between them around 100,000 pit stops. 100,000. Let it sit. Mercedes runs 3 complete crews so that no single person is ever a point of failure. One team's crew practices every single day of the week. It's built into their schedule. It's not a thing they do at an offsite once a year. The output is 1.8 seconds. The system that produces it runs every single day. Now think about this for a second. When the customer experience breaks in your organizations, when the call goes wrong, when the order's late, when the app fails, where does that failure actually start? In my experience, almost never at the point of contact. It starts 3 layers back, a handoff nobody mapped, a process nobody defined, a system nobody owned. You cannot improvise your way to a great experience at the counter. It's won or lost in the back office long before the customer ever shows up. Which brings me to the lesson 2. And this is the one I think is most overlooked. Watch that pit crew closely, and you'll notice something strange. Nobody is trying to be the hero. The guy pulling the front left tire is not trying to set a personal best. Why not, one may ask? Because there's only one number that matters: the total time the car is stationary in the box. A brilliant individual effort that breaks the sequence is worthless. A perfectly aligned one wins championships. 23 people, one goal, and here's the key. That alignment is engineered. It's not a vibe. It's not a poster on the wall. Everyone top to the bottom is pointed at the same outcome. Now, does that describe your organization? Because here's how most companies actually run. Marketing's optimizing for acquisition, the contact centers optimizing for handle time, product team is optimizing for ship velocity, and every one of them is winning. Every team is hitting its number. And the customer? The customer experiences the seams between all of it, the gaps, because nobody owns the total time the car is stationary in the box. This is what I mean when I talk about strategy cascade. Your strategy has to flow all the way down and turn into customer experience metrics that actually point the same direction. If it doesn't, you don't have a strategy. You have departments, and the customer feels the difference every time. Here's a test you can run this week. Ask anyone on your team, what's the one customer outcome your work serves? If they name a customer outcome, beautiful. If they name their own KPI instead, you've just found your slow pit stop. Lesson 3, and this one's my favorite because it's so concrete. Why is the record 1.80 seconds and not 1.82 seconds? One word, data. Let me give you the detail that makes this real. The old record, 1.82 seconds, Red Bull 2019, that was set on the older, lighter tires. The new record, McLaren's 1.80, was set in 23 on heavier wheels. Wheels that everybody predicted would make pit stops slower. So the task got harder and the crew got faster. How? Not through effort. You don't close that gap by trying harder. You close it through measurement, tire weights, tire temperatures, the RPM of the guns, the exact angle the car enters the box, the driver hitting his marks down to the centimeter. They even track how the crew's joints move to refine technique and prevent injury. They measure everything, and every stop becomes data for the next stop. Here's the contrast I want you to feel. Half a second separates a world record stop from a merely good one. In a 2-second event, half a second is an enormous gap, and it gets closed 1/100th of a second at a time. Now, how does your organization measure customer experience? For most, it's a quarterly NPS number, maybe an annual survey, something that shows up long after the experience is over and is way too blunt to actually do anything with. That's not measuring the car, that's scoring the race after it's finished. F1 measures the inputs in real time, fine enough to change the very next stop. If your CX data arrives once a quarter and rolls up into a single number, you're scoring the result. You're not improving the system. So let me pull this all together. A pit stop looks like a feat of speed. It isn't. It's a feat of system. 3 things make it possible, and all 3 translate directly. Back-end operations you never see, that's where the experience is actually built. Total alignment to one shared goal, that's strategy that genuinely cascades, and relentless granular data, that's how you improve 1/100th of a second at a time. The crews that win the pit lane don't have the fastest hands, they have the best system. The 2 seconds you see on television is just the system, surfacing for air. So here's what I'll leave you with this week. I want you to find your 2 seconds, the moment your customer actually experiences you, and then ask the honest question. Have you ever actually practiced it? Or do you just perform it live every day and hope? This is one of the ideas I explore in more depth in my book, CX First. So if you want to grab a copy, I'll leave the link in the comments below. I'm Hitesh Bagai, and I'll see you next week in the same podcast. Thanks for listening to my podcast. If you found this insightful, please subscribe, share, and check out my recent article on this topic on LinkedIn. As always, feel free to get in touch with me with comments, suggestions, and ideas. I'm Hitesh, and I'll see you next time.